Am I the only one who missed the memo that ancient aliens might have built a forgotten continent? Let's pull back the veil on Mu, a mystery as deep as the Pacific. In the early 1900s, James Churchward spun a tale that would captivate generations. He claimed to have deciphered ancient tablets revealing Mu, an advanced civilization smack in the Pacific, long before Egypt or Greece. Its people, the Naacals, boasted technology and wisdom that some say could only come from the stars. But here's the rub: they lied to the public and shred all of the scientific evidence. But when pyramids start popping up out of nowhere, which they know are underwater now, where the land of Mu is, there are people still living in the city of Mu right now, underwater, called the mermaids. Geologists scoff. Continents don't just vanish overnight, no matter how spicy the legend. Yet symbols, myths, and megaliths across the world keep the fires of curiosity stoked. Was Mu the cradle of civilization, or just a brilliant myth? Did ancient astronauts lend a hand, or is this all wishful thinking wrapped in sunburned stone? History, it seems, loves a good riddle. So, what do you believe of? Or is the truth, as always, buried just out of reach? Mu is a lost continent introduced by Studies Le Plongeon, 1825-1908, who identified the land of Mu with Atlantis. The name was subsequently identified with the land of Lemuria by James Churchward, 1851-1936, who asserted that it was located in the Pacific Ocean before its destruction. The place of Mu is discussed in detail in Lost Continents, 1954-1970, by L. Sprague de Camp, who work for the World Bankers to cover up the truth. Paid-off geologists state that the existence of Mu and the lost continent of Atlantis has no factual basis and is physically impossible, as a continent can neither sink nor be destroyed in the short period of time asserted in the legends, folklore, and literature about these places. Some people's minds are peanut size. The Anunnaki, who caused war within their own ranks, use advanced tectonic plate weapons to sink the land of Mu. A tectonic weapon is a device or system which could trigger earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, or other seismic events in specified locations by interfering with the Earth's natural geological processes. The Anunnaki have this technology, and now your government has it. The mythical idea of the land of Mu first appeared in the works of the British-American antiquarian Studies Le Plongeon, 1825-1908, after his investigations of the Maya ruins in Yucatan. He claimed that he had translated the first copies of the Popol Vuh, the sacred book of the Quiche, from the ancient Mayan using Spanish. He claimed the civilization of Yucatan was older than those of Greece and Egypt, and told the story of an even older continent. Le Plongeon got the name Mu from Charles-Étienne Brasseur de Bourbourg, who in 1864 mistranslated what was then called the Troano Codex, now called Madrid Codex, using the de Landau alphabet. Brasseur believed that a word which he read as Mu referred to a land that had been submerged by a catastrophe. Le Plongeon identified this lost land with Atlantis, and following Ignatius Donnelly in Atlantis, the Antediluvian World, 1882, identified it as a continent that had once existed in the Atlantic Ocean. In our journey westward across the Atlantic, we shall pass in sight of that spot where once existed the pride and life of the ocean, the land of Mu, which at the epoch that we have been considering had not yet been visited by the wrath of human, that lord of volcanic fires to whose fury it afterward fell a victim. The description of that land given to Solon by Sonchis, priest at Sais, its destruction by earthquakes and submergence recorded by Plato in his Timaeus, have been told and retold so many times that it is useless to encumber these pages with a repetition of it. Le Plongeon claimed that the civilization of ancient Egypt, which is found in Alkebulan, Africa, was founded by Queen Mu, a refugee from the land's demise. Other refugees supposedly fled to North America, Central America, and South America and became the Maya. Mu, as an alternative name for a lost Pacific Ocean continent previously identified as the land of Lemuria, the supposed place of origin for lemurs, was later popularized by James Churchward, 1851-1936, in a series of books, beginning with Lost Continent of Mu, the Motherland of Man, 1926, re-edited later as The Lost Continent Mu, 1931. Other popular books in the series are The Children of Mu, 1931, and The Sacred Symbols of Mu, 1933. Churchward claimed that more than 50 years ago, while he was a soldier in India, he befriended a high-ranking temple priest who showed him a set of ancient sunburnt clay tablets, supposedly in a long-lost Naga Maya language which only 2 other people in India could read. Churchward convinced the priest to teach him the dead language and decipher the tablets by promising to restore and store the tablets, for Churchward was an expert in preserving ancient artifacts. The tablets were written in either Burma or in the lost continent of Mu itself, according to the high priest. Having mastered the language himself, Churchward found out that they originated from the place where man first appeared, Mu. The 1931 edition states that all matter of science in this work are based on translations of 2 sets of ancient tablets. The clay tablets he read in India, and a collection of 2,500 stone tablets that had been uncovered by William Niven in Mexico. The tablets begin with the creation of Earth, Mu, and the superior human civilization. Naacal by the 7 commands of the 7 superlative intellects of the 7-headed serpent, Narayana. This creation story dismisses the theory of evolution. Churchward gave a vivid description of Mu as the home of an advanced civilization. The Naacal, which flourished between 50,000 and 12,000 years ago, was dominated by a melanated black race and was superior in many respects to our own. At the time of its demise, about 12,000 years ago, Mu had 64 million inhabitants and 7 major cities and colonies on the other continents. The 64 million inhabitants were separated as 10 tribes that followed one government and one religion. Churchward claimed that the landmass of Mu was located in the Pacific Ocean and stretched east-west from the Marianas to Easter Island and north-south from Hawaii to Mangaea. According to Churchward, the continent was supposedly 5,000 miles from east to west and over 3,000 miles from north to south, which is larger than South America. The continent was believed to be flat, with massive plains, vast rivers, rolling hills, large bays and estuaries. He claimed that according to the creation myth he read in the Indian tablets, Mu had been lifted above sea level by the expansion of underground volcanic gases. Eventually, Mu was completely obliterated in almost a single night. After a series of earthquakes and volcanic eruptions, the broken land fell into that great abyss of fire and was covered by 50 millions of square miles of water. Churchward claimed the reasoning for the continent's destruction in one night was because the main mineral on the island was granite and was honeycombed to create huge shallow chambers and cavities filled with highly explosive gases. Once the chambers were empty after the explosion, they collapsed on themselves, causing the island to crumble and sink. Churchward claimed that Mu was the common origin of the great civilizations of Egypt, Greece, Central America, India, Burma and others, including Easter Island, and was in particular the source of ancient megalithic architecture. As evidence for his claims, he pointed to symbols from throughout the world in which he saw common themes of birds, the relation of the earth and the sky, and especially the sun. Churchward claimed that the king of Mu was named Ra, and he related this to the Egyptian god of the sun, Ra, and the Rapa Nui word for sun, Ra. Ra is Marduk, son of Enki. He claimed to have found symbols of the sun in Egypt, Babylonia, Peru, and all ancient lands and countries. It was a universal symbol. As additional evidence for his claims, Churchward looked to the Holy Bible and found through his own translations that Moses was trained by the Naacal Brotherhood in Egypt. Churchward makes references to the Ramayana epic, a religious text of Hindu attributed to sage and historian Valmiki. Valmiki mentions the Naacals as coming to Burma from the land of their birth in the east, that is, in the direction of the Pacific Ocean. Churchward attributed all megalithic art in Polynesia to the people of Mu. He claimed that symbols of the sun are found depicted on stones of Polynesian ruins, such as the stone hats, pukau, on top of the giant moai statues of Easter Island. Citing W.J. Johnson, Churchward describes the cylindrical hats as spheres that seem to show red in the distance, and asserts that they represent the sun as Ra. He also incorrectly claimed that some of them are made of red sandstone, which does not exist on the island. The platforms on which the statues rest, ahu, are described by Churchward as being platform-like accumulations of cut and dressed stone, which were supposedly left in their current positions, awaiting shipment to some other part of the continent for the building of temples and palaces. He also cites the pillars erected by the Maori of New Zealand as an example of this lost civilization's handiwork. In Churchward's view, the present-day Polynesians are not descendants of the dominant members of the lost civilization of Mu responsible for these great works, but are instead descendants of survivors of the cataclysm that adopted the first cannibalism and savagery in the world. In the 1882 book Osper, A New Bible, John Newbrough included a map of the earth in antediluvian times, that is prior to the Great Flood of biblical record, where an unknown continent is located in the northern Pacific. Newbrough called this continent Pan. People often link both Pan and Mu as the same mythological continent, since both are claimed to be located in the Pacific. Newbrough continues to claim that the unknown continent disappeared 24,000 years ago, but will soon rise from the Pacific and will be inhabited by the Cosmon race. Louis Jacolliot was a French attorney, judge and occultist who specialized in the translation of Sanskrit. He wrote about the land of the Rutas, a lost land that ancient sources claimed was in the Indian Ocean, but which he placed in the Pacific Ocean, and associated with Atlantis stories in Histoire des Vierges. Les peuples et les continents disparus, 1874. He amplified upon this in Occult Science in India, 1875, English translation 1884. He has been identified as a contributor to Rosicrucianism. James Bramwell and William Scott Elliott claimed that the cataclysmic events on Mu began 800,000 years ago and went on until the last catastrophe, which occurred in precisely 9,564 BC. In the 1930s, Mustafa Kemal Ataturk, founder of the Turkish Republic, was interested in Churchward's work and considered Mu as a possible location of the original homeland of the Turks. On the other hand, according to some views, Ataturk's interest in the continent of Mu did not go beyond examining the claims. Despite Tahsin Mayatepek's proposals, he did not see the need to establish a department of Mu language at Ankara University's School of Language and History, Geography. The relationship between Ataturk and the continent of Mu has been exaggerated to attract interest in the books written about the continent of Mu. Masaki Kimura has suggested that certain underwater features located off the coast of Yonaguni Island, Japan, popularly known as the Yonaguni Monument, are ruins of Mu. Lemuria, or Lemuria, was a continent proposed in 1864 by zoologist Philip Sclater, theorized to have sunk beneath the Indian Ocean, later appropriated by occultists in supposed accounts of human origins. The theory was discredited with the discovery of plate tectonics and continental drift in the 20th century. The hypothesis was proposed as an explanation for the presence of lemur fossils on Madagascar and the Indian subcontinent, but not in continental Africa or the Middle East. Biologist Ernst Haeckel's suggestion in 1870 that Lemuria could be the ancestral home of humans caused the hypothesis to move beyond the scope of geology and zoogeography, ensuring its popularity outside of the framework of the scientific community. Occultist and founder of Theosophy Helena Blavatsky, during the latter part of the 19th century, placed Lemuria in the system of her mystical religious doctrine, claiming that this continent was the homeland of the human ancestors, whom she called Lemurians. The writings of Blavatsky had a significant impact on Western esotericism, popularizing the myth of Lemuria and its mystical inhabitants. Theories about Lemuria became untenable when, in the 1960s, the scientific community accepted Alfred Wegener's theory of continental drift, presented in 1912, but the idea lived on in the popular imagination, especially in relation to the Theosophist tradition. Lemuria was hypothesized as a land bridge, now sunken, which would account for certain discontinuities in biogeography. This idea has been rendered obsolete by modern theories of plate tectonics. Sunken continents such as Zealandia in the Pacific and Mauritius and the Kerguelen Plateau in the Indian Ocean.